It's time for Who Watch, Time and Relative Blackness in Space.
Black girls have the box.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Connie, and Robin coming to you live from the Time Vortex.
Today we're discussing the latest Doctor Who Christmas special, Twice Upon a Time. In this episode, the Doctor doesn't want to regenerate again. Bill is maybe alive, and Nardole shows up at the end for some reason no one asked for.
No one asked for it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And because we're black, this is our Kwanzaa special, y'all.
Yeah.
Yes!
It's our Kwanzaa special.
If all goes well, it'll go out on the last day of Kwanzaa.
That was what I was thinking we would do.
Habari Gani!
Imani!
Yay!
Yay!
That'll be really... Well, if it doesn't go out, I'll just cut this out.
You won't. It's fine.
I tried to do it yesterday during our taping of Wizard Tea, but she was like, Kwanzaa's over in this time stream, and I was like, oh, I'm very confused.
Wizard Team spoilers for our
I
cross
wore that shirt
listeners.
yesterday. Sorry, I just noticed.
Okay. Let's get into what happened in this Christmas special.
We have to.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not say it's not terrible.
It's not bad.
It wasn't
not
good. Like of the bad. You know what I mean? Like of
the Christmas specials, it is pretty high up there on my list.
Of the Christmas special, it's one of the better ones ish.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mine is. I think for me, it's like solidly in the middle. But like of like the season 10, I kind of could keep it with season 10. It's not the worst.
I'd rewatch it over the last 5 episodes of season 10. So it ranks high on my list. Not that it wasn't at all perfect, and we'll get into all the things, but it was fine, and I was going into it dreading it because I kind of knew some of the problematic things that occurred based on other people tweeting about it and y'all's mysterious comments in Slack and being like, don't read the agenda, just watch it with your unadulterated thoughts. But I was not as bored or upset as I thought I would be, which is a plus.
This glowing review right here.
I mean, yeah, I wasn't upset. I think I was more confused and a little bit annoyed.
Yes.
I think I was annoyed and confused.
But I wasn't angry?
No.
The way that we have to
yelled out loud, and my brother was sitting next to me and he didn't know why. He was just like, this show is really white. I was like, I know. And now they threw this guy in my face. So, yeah. But other than that.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be working on the really white part, but Moffat got a Moffat.
He's got a Moffat. Anyway.
Okay, so, summary of what actually happened. So, picks up from where the finale left off, where the Doctor ends up, I guess he's on the South Pole. I don't think they said that in the finale.
They did not.
But he ended up.
I was like, what planet is he on?
He
just showed up in the snow.
The first Doctor is there. And then the first Doctor, who is also refusing to regenerate for some reason. And I'm kind of over that trope. It's not. I'm just kind of I guess at this point, okay, fine. The first Doctor is refusing to regenerate. Okay, cool. If that hadn't been done already, the past 2 regenerations, I think that would be an interesting thing to explore. And if the 12th Doctor wasn't also refusing to regenerate, because I feel like at this point, this is 13 regenerations, 14, actually.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's what you do. And so you being stubborn and angry about it every time is getting old.
Yes. It's gotten I guess, progressively worse with each Doctor, where, like, 9 was sort of like, okay, I'll regenerate, I was great. 10's like, I don't want to go, and, like, wanders around for a few months before he leaves. 11's like, I don't even remember, because that Christmas special is just...
He was like, it was a whole thing. They were trying
11
to, like,
was mostly fine with it once he got the It took so long because of the lore, he wasn't going to regenerate. It was it.
Yes,
like, he was dying.
And I think that's part of what, like, once he knows, like, 11 makes sense in that aspect where it's just like he thinks he doesn't have any more. So his not wanting to go is like he really just literally doesn't want to die because he thinks it's the last one. So for 12 to also be like, I don't want to go, it's just like, okay, but you just, like, got, it's in theory, because we don't actually know, in theory, another 12 regenerations. So, like, what are you upset about? Like, calm down.
And he also, like, didn't have a reason for not wanting to leave either.
Yeah.
Like, that was the other thing, is he was asking the first Doctor, like, why don't you want to regenerate? And then dude was like, okay, why don't you want to regenerate? And he didn't have an answer. So it was like, honestly, I'm just going to say it, this episode didn't have a plot.
Yeah.
It really didn't.
It didn't, and that's why it was confusing. Because it was like, what is happening? Why are they doing this? Who are these people?
And there were no stakes either. Like,
yeah, they tossed the stakes out the window. They're like, oh, they're not evil, so that means nothing.
I mean, I like the idea of, like, oh, look, it's something that is not evil. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't understand it. Like, I like that idea, but, like, why did they come and bring him up to the big thing in the sky and call him the Doctor of War like they were gonna hurt him?
It was because
so I think
he didn't regenerate, and then they met each other and they were both refusing to regenerate. I think that was supposed to be the reason that they popped up.
That the testimony popped up.
Because I think that's why time, like, was paused or did whatever it did, and then pushed the Captain Gaddis out of time, which
also like Captain Gaddis,
he didn't need to be there. There was no reason
him. What was it about him that made them push him out of time? Did they go find him specifically to push him out of time? Was it because he's a Lethbridge steward?
The testimony was calling it an error.
Yeah, like a random glitch.
It was supposed to be that it was just some random person.
Oh,
and then
I guess
reveal that it's a Lethbridge steward or whatever. I think that was supposed to be like a thing for the first Doctor. Like, oh, now in my future, I'm gonna like.
Even though that doesn't happen for like 2 more regenerations, apparently. But so going back quickly to the idea that like nothing happens, and like you were saying, you enjoyed the idea of like what they were at first trying to do. So like, right. So like, if it weren't the idea of like there is a plot and then it is no plot, like. They built up the idea of the testimony to be a villain. And like you were saying, Robin, it's fine that there is no villain. Like, that's an interesting idea. But for me, it's also like, it's an interesting idea to have these characters just together and for there to be no plot. But then just have that be the whole time. Like, they're just hanging out, chatting. It's a, like a sort of like a bottle episode idea, even though it's not from the definition of a bottle episode. But like, if that were the idea or the case, it'd be different than... ooh, look, mystery, plot, and then it all fizzles out together, like fizzles out.
Yeah, right. and I still don't know. And maybe I just needed to like
Andre type of episode, and it was, oh, let's get really serious and look at each other and have all of these sexist jokes because we can. Yeah, but nothing comes of it.
Right? Yeah, I mean, just I think kidding. I mean, going back to the testimony, maybe I needed to rewatch it, or maybe I needed to watch it with subtitles, because I usually do, and then I forgot this time. But I couldn't understand, like, what they were, where they came from. And there was an explanation, but I still didn't really get it. Because it was like they take people on their death, and then they send them to their friends to, like, talk to them? Or
I don't know.
The person at the moment of their death, and they download all of their memories.
That part I understood.
Give testimony, and then they put the person back at the moment of their death. So this is where I got confused.
Why?
So is Bill dead? because
they just don't explain it.
Right, because this is basically what I did get is that it's the House of Black and White, and these are basically the faceless men of the universe. I got that part. So then, yeah. So then I would think that thing. You said what? Yes.
I would.
So then I would think that, yeah, Bill is actually dead. But then it's not.
They never explain how she died.
Her, like, what happened with Heather, and then she like doesn't remember.
Right. And
she's like, yeah, she saved me, and then like can't remember. But then they don't go back to that at all.
It literally was like they didn't want to have to explain that she died later. And so Moffat was just like, screw it, she doesn't remember, and then that's the easy way out. Like, there were a lot of, that moment especially, but I feel like there were just moments where it's like, it was the easy way out, where it's just like, I don't feel like explaining this, so you don't get an explanation.
Like, this is your last episode, like, write some shit that's actually good. I'm like, honestly, like, this whole episode, the main good thing that came out of it was that I was like, it's Moffat's last, it's okay. Only gotta see Gaius' face for like 59 more minutes, 40 more minutes. It's like, it's almost over.
I was really, like, the Gaddis thing didn't hit me. Like, I was annoyed when they were like, oh, Mark Gaddis. But it was when Connie was started to talk about how many episodes he's been in. And I was like, give another actor a goddamn shot.
Literally.
Like, stop it.
And there's literally no like, at first, I remember when I saw one of the early, like, previews or whatever for it, and it was like, or it was like a sneak peek. So it was the scene where the two doctors and Gaddis' character are in the TARDIS for the first time, and he's like, "It's bigger on the inside."
That was the moment where I was like,
it took the first Doctor way too long to figure out that this was a like future incarnation of him. I feel like you go into a TARDIS, there's some changes, like.
And it's not like he's the only Time Lord at that point. Like, he knows what Time Lords are, and like that they regenerate, and that they probably there's no way that he's the only Doctor who's like come in contact with his past or future self. So like, or a Time Lord who's come in contact with past or future self. So like, he should have some vague
with his future self before.
No, I'm saying
the second and third Doctors before.
Oh yeah, you're right. There were multiple Doctor specials from original Who. Yeah. Okay. Then that, again.
And this would be his last one because he's about to regenerate. You know what I mean? So it's like, this will be the last time that it happened.
Also, Gaddis has been in 5 or 6. 5 Doctor Who episodes, which right now doesn't sound like a lot, but knowing that he was also in all of Sherlock is just sort of like in my face, like, all right.
Yeah. But it was just like, I don't know. I had this thought, like, right before we started recording, that Bill is to Doctor Who what Beyonce is to the Grammys.
Elaborate. Okay,
so
elaborate.
They're just like, join the Doctors and Bill on the TARDIS. Let's, the Doctors and Bill, we're doing that. And then you see the preview and there's no Bill. And then you see the episode and Bill isn't even really there. It's really about this like random white captain from World War I that no one cares about. No one has any emotional ties to. It's Mark Gaddis. Why is he here for a 6th time? Like, it's just like, it's just a way for like Moffat and Gaddis to just like play around in the world the last time and just like, woo, yeah, this is our little party. And then it's like 3 white dudes in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Before things get shaken up again.
Because
I don't care about that.
So the thought I had while you were talking, Brianna, but also during the episode, was the difference between Moffat and Gaddis and like J.J. Abrams and Brian Fuller, right? So you get these like storied franchises and you get these people that grew up as fans now taking over the franchise. But I think the thing that J.J. Abrams and Brian Fuller succeed at is remembering and moving forward from a fan perspective in a certain way of like, this is a huge franchise with a lot of people. And so I want to make it modern, but keep up like the standards of the franchise. And what Moffat does is like, I get to be in the show. So I'm going to make it all about me because I grew up loving the show, and completely discards the fact that like, oh yeah, guess what? Millions of people grew up loving this show and are still watching the show. So how about you don't center yourself all the time?
Yeah.
Right? It would be like if J.J. Abrams was like, well, I want to do this and I get to do it because I've always wanted to do this thing.
Well,
and it doesn't make any sense. No one asked for it.
Well, JJ does like have reoccurring people. So like Greg Grunberg, or however you say his name, was like in Lost, and he appeared in Force Awakens, but like as bit characters, like they're not characters who like are the center of the episode and is like the important person in the episode, and and I think that
the same thing where it's like he is the same actors a lot, and like a lot of people do that, and that's
but also they're actors and not also writers. That's where it kind of like rubs me the wrong way, where it's like Gaddis is also in production. It's like, pick an actor at least. Like, I'm okay with like producers using their favorite actors time and time again, but it's the close. It's just like, I'm just kind of annoyed at seeing Gaddis and like knowing his like extreme closeness with Moffat, and like the fact that they just do everything together does make it seem very like self-centered to the two of them.
But it's also not
in a way that other people don't necessarily do.
Mad about the was it the Romans episode?
Yeah.
And he was like, there were no people of color, and like he has his own.
Yeah. So I don't know.
But the thing too is like they share that same thing, like Mattis and Gaddis, Moffat and Mattis. Yeah, I'm gonna call him Mattis. They share those same sentiments, and I feel like when Moffat is working with other people, they can tug him in there, or they can balance that out, right? They can like smooth that over, or at least, talk him out of some of his baser or worst instincts. But when they're together, they just feed off of each other. And like, you're right. You know what I mean? And it's like, they don't complement each other at all in terms of like their working relationship. They both gas each other up. They both believe their own hype. And they both ignore the fact that you're not just getting, it's like, okay, when we went to the Wizarding World, like the studio tour, Brett, I remember, and it's like, we get to be in there and we can do whatever the fuck we want because we're just in this space, but we're not expecting millions of people to like watch, pay, and enjoy us playing in our own like little playground, right? Like when we do Wizard Team or when we do something else, there's like a mindset of like, this is for other people as well. It's not just us being like, oh, the toys, I get to eat all of the candy until I make myself sick. Like that's, I'm not interested in watching someone.
But the difference in that also is that like when you two do stuff like that, it is for a community that has not seen themselves in that property, or like when we do this TARBIS. So, but like Moffat and Gaddis, like I think part of why it's just so frustrating and annoying and sort of like it just irked me when other times when other producers and creators do it, it's not as annoying. It's just that like, all right, we get it. You two white dudes enjoy Doctor Who, but like literally give someone else a chance, because we've been like every other community besides white dudes have been excluded from Doctor Who for so long. So like I think that's where most of it comes from, because again, it's not like other creators doing, like when Greg Grunberg shows up, it's like, one, it's a bit part, but also like, all right, cool, you're in it, great, and then they move on.
Also, like Michaela Cole showed up, right, in a bit part, and it was also like, hey, look at that, you know what I mean? Same thing with like Jessica Williams is going to be in Fantastic Beasts, which fine. You know what I mean? But it's like, oh, look, you know what I mean? Fan service, or what? I'm doing a favor for a friend who just happens to have power and connections and can be in this thing. But I'm not going to, like you said, like I'm not going to make her the center of the story.
Right. But that's also the thing, is that if she had
hurts the story.
But if she had, like, if J.K. Rowling, for instance, had been like, Jessica Williams is now the star of Fantastic Beasts, we'd love it, because, again, it is bringing in a perspective and an audience and a demographic that, like, has been ignored by that franchise. So, like, that's where the difference lies. If Moffat had friends who were women or people of color or anything else other than a cis white dude, it would be fine. But it's Gaddis who just shows up again.
Like, not even like a young new Who fan, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like a new generation of cis het white
dudes. Moffat knows that he can't act. So he was like, hey boy, like my man's about to just do this for me. Like this is a stand-in for both of us.
Right.
And so I'm putting my boy who can act a little bit.
Right.
Throw him up in there and forget about Bill, because like then the whole point was like Bill was a plot device for him.
They literally could have focused the episode
around him when it was like, no one cares about him, no one knows who he is, none of this shit, and also I still don't know what's going on. So,
because like, if the idea, and I heard somewhere, and I forget where, that like Bill wasn't originally going to be in the episode, and then I guess, you know, her fan favoritism was they shoehorned her in, which I'm like, I'm glad she's in it rather than not in it, I guess. But like, the way that they wrote it, you can tell. But like, they also could have just written the episode based on whatever headcanon that never made it to the screen of why she showed up. So like, if the testimony takes characters who, or people who have died, and like put them in what, I still don't get it, but whatever their explanation was, they could have like had Bill shown Heather, not shown Heather, maybe Heather disappeared or Heather dies. Bill's about to die wherever they are in their adventures, and then the testimony show, like, the episode could have centered on what they left us with Bill, where like, okay, she showed up, she's off on an adventure with this girl that she just met and like did not have a lot of time with, like, whatever, and like shown us those last moments between those two characters, or Bill by herself, because maybe homegirl who played Heather can't show up. Like, I understand the logistics of like planning and getting actors and stuff, like maybe she could show up, whatever, but like rewrite the episode based on a character we already know, and like maybe Gaddis could have still been in it, maybe that plot line could have been there, because I enjoy the, like, we'll get into it later, but like I enjoy the history that they used in the episode, but like it didn't have to be the entire episode.
Also, the Dalek, so there's like this whole thing where the doctor's like, okay, we got to figure out who the testimony is, we're gonna go to like the biggest database in history or whatever. And I thought they were going to go to the library. Okay, is that what explains it? And it made me kind of sad.
I missed all that.
Go to the library, because I feel like that would have been a good nod to a good.
Isn't the library gone? I thought the library was gone.
Mm-mm.
No, they had to leave it to the Vash Generata.
Right.
Oh.
But that still could have been a thing. Like, that was a good
to the remnants of the library.
They could have like nodded back to and like, we're going to go over there real quick. It's going to be some shit, but we get there. Anyway, instead, he goes to some unnamed planet and runs into the good Dalek from season 8.
I don't remember that at all. Like, I thought when you were saying that, and I was like, I thought was that not Clara? I'm confused. No. I don't know.
So the good Dalek wasn't Clara, or it wouldn't have been Clara. It would have been Oswin or whatever, but it wasn't. It was. So season 8, I think it was like episode 2, where like the Doctor and Clara go, there's like a sick Dalek and they have to figure out what's going on, and then they go inside the Dalek and then like fight Dalek viruses and shit.
Oh.
It's a mediocre episode.
And I skip most Dalek episodes.
They're taking
like,
a mediocre part of a mediocre episode from a mediocre season. Like, it was not something that should be memorable. I just have like, my mind is a still trap. So I was like, oh, okay, I remember what's going on here. But like, yeah, so at the end it was like, he found out like the disease of the Dalek was that he was a good Dalek and he wanted to kill all other Daleks, and that's like what made him good or whatever. And then he said at the end this whole thing like, you, Doctor, are a good Dalek or whatever the fuck. It was like that whole thing about the Doctor being a soldier, which also came back up in this episode, and I'm really over that theme. It's really like heavy-handed. But yeah, so then they go to him and they have some like witty banter or whatever, and then the Doctor finds out about the testimony. But it was just kind of, I think of like, I don't know, I think of their, again, like thinking of the Vash Generata or like some of the other creatures or plots or themes that Moffat did that actually worked well. He could have brought those back instead.
Yeah. I guess he wanted to go back to like specifically
the guy
12.
Who doesn't recognize his best work. Like, he's like, it's like if, I don't know, whatever. But like, it's like if he was a rapper and he was famous for like one album, but like he goes on tour to like memorize the album that everybody hated, but he thinks it's the best. Like, he just
it's the obligatory, it's the last episode we're going to record probably about Moffat, hopefully, but you know, it's the obligatory Sleep No More reference. He thought he was like killing the game when he wrote that episode, and he was not.
And he had been lost the game.
Been him.
He had been lost the game.
Right, but this is the thing. So, like, in reality, in like, if you poll 100 Potterheads, 90 Potterheads will be like, Moffat killed the game in Silence in the Library or in Blink. Like, he killed the game. Like,
Potterheads?
Whovians.
Whovians.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were doing like an analogy.
Right.
Like, okay.
No, so if you pulled 100 Whovians.
But I mean, Joe and Moffat share a lot of the same, like, you should stop at some point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, continue.
So, if you pulled 100 Whovians and said, like, what was Moffat's best showing, like, 90 of them would say, like, Silence in the Library, Blink, like, those are his, like, you know, shining, killing the game moments.
Or season 5. But nothing after that. Or season 5. Like, season 5 is my favorite, right. And I think it's the time when he, like, has the most coherence across a season, and then it just drops. It just drops off after that.
So if you pulled 90 Whovians, that's who they would say, like, Silence in the Library, Blink, season 5, like, those are when he was, like, top of his game. And then if you asked Moffat, he would say, Sleep No More. That's when I hit it out of the park. That's when I hit my stride. And everyone's like, no.
I mean, maybe he didn't think that.
20, like, no.
Maybe that was the moment where he was like, maybe I should leave. And then they're like, one more season, dude. He's like, okay, fine.
He was like, I should leave now on this high note. And everyone was like, you should leave now. You have nothing left.
All you're behind. So after we find out about the Dalek, and they find out about the testimony or whatever, they're like, okay, we got to take Captain Gaddis back to his time so he can die. And then we find out that he's actually a Lethbridge Stewart, which is supposed to be really heartwarming, but it's really just, again, Moffat and Gaddis shoehorning their way into the thing. It was really so Gaddis could be like, I want to be an ancestor to Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. That's what it was.
I thought it was cute. I'm not going to lie. Out of everything in the episode, that was the least harmful.
Yeah,
it was
I think
like
so.
Harmless, throwaway cuteness. Fine. There's one more Lethbridge Stewart.
I think so he has to go back to the day, and apparently it's also the day of the Christmas armistice in 1914. So, I mean, I thought the Lethbridge Stewart thing was cute or whatever. I thought the Christmas armistice part was kind of like out of nowhere. Like, it was fine, but there was nothing before. Like, I literally, like, it felt like 3 different episodes, to be honest, because, again, there's no plot, and they're just, like, throwing things in there.
If it had been all about the Christmas
armistice, and you're like, there was no lesson before that about laying down your arms. There was no, you know what I mean? There was no, like, through to that moment. And so when they announced that, I was like, what?
Yeah. That makes sense. And it does feel like different episodes that could have been handled separately. I enjoyed the Christmas armistice because I was like, I mean, I think it was Moffat being twisty again, where it's just like, that's why there's no through line to it. Cause it's like, and look, timey-wimey, like, you know, like I used history and I enjoyed that, and it's Christmas, so it makes sense as a Christmas episode. But as you were saying, it should have, if it were going to be that, I think it could have been its own episode where it's just like, maybe most of the episode we don't know it's the Christmas armistice, and then this happens, he brings him back, and it's like, I fast forwarded a couple hours and now it's happening, and so the guy doesn't die. But like, so I enjoyed it because it's kind of the perfect use of history for Doctor Who, where it's just like, you go back in time where something crazy that makes no sense happened, and then you're like, oh, the Doctor was behind it. Even though technically here the Doctor wasn't actually behind it. He didn't actually do anything.
Behind any of it. And that also made no sense. Also, I think they pulled it in there because they realized that by the end of the episode, they're wrapping up and they hadn't mentioned Christmas one time. They were in the snow at the beginning.
That was
about it.
That was
it. They hadn't mentioned it at all, and they were like, oh shit, we need something.
Yeah, I think if the episode had been about the Christmas armistice and maybe the Doctor had helped not cause it like himself, but like had spoken to someone and then like it inspired it to like happen, maybe that would have been a cool like singular episode, and maybe Bill could have been there, and that was it.
An alien in 1914 in World War II, and they're like, well, we gotta band together, kill this alien, now let's sing.
Yes.
Like, I don't know.
Yes.
There are like 100 different ways that it could have gone and probably worked better, but alas,
Moffat had to do too much. Yeah. Moffat had to do too much.
I want to get back to, I want to get past Gaddis, because why?
Indeed.
I want to get back to the idea of bringing in the first Doctor, and it being like, oh, we have this new actor who had played the Doctor in this TV movie, and he looks like him and he can play the First Doctor really well. So like, let's do that. And I got that and I thought that was cool, cute. What I didn't like is, what did the First Doctor do besides be sexist, semi-racist, and in the way, slow on the uptake?
Yeah.
Why was there even two doctors? Like, they didn't talk to each other and like have a moment where they're like smart. They heightened each other's like intelligence.
Right, like in the
they didn't
50th, yeah.
Right. They didn't work together in any meaningful or real way.
They barely work together well, and like they explored that in the 50th, but like in a way where it's like they didn't work together well and they kind of butted heads a lot, and then they got over it because they're like, oh, we have other things to deal with, and like let's get past our trauma. And like there was a reckoning at the end of like, we are all the same person, like what you bring to the table is like coming forward to 11 and like all this jazz. Like 1 and 12 are so far apart, and it's like, I don't know, I guess the idea is like, what if you were interacting with your 5-year-old self, and like what do they bring to the table? What does your 5-year-old self bring to the table?
Like this weird thing with the First Doctor. Well, one, they like this is the first time that I have not cared about two doctors getting together and like have actively been annoyed about it.
I wasn't annoyed, but I get it.
Those are usually some of my favorite episodes. They're always really fun and exciting, and like just, you know, they butt heads, but it's also because they're the same person, and so that happens. You know, you tend to not like people who are very similar to you, and so that all made sense in the past. This time it was like the First Doctor was the Doctor's super embarrassingly racist and sexist grandfather, and he's just like, ooh, don't listen to him, let's go somewhere, you know what I mean? And then it wasn't like a, you know, in the 3rd episode of season 10 that was really awesome, and the Doctor punched that racist dude in the face. This time he's just like, ooh, let's not talk about
stop talking about
bigotry happening in my TARDIS. Also, it's an interesting thing that and like, I'm just, because I watched the like 10-year anniversary special. It's like one of the 2 classic Who episodes that I've watched, and in that one it was the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Doctors, and the First Doctor was almost like, he wasn't like fully in it. It was like mostly 2 and 3, and then 1 was like in there occasionally, and like he was and I think it might be because like the actor wasn't actually alive at that point, potentially, but it was just like he was giving advice, and he was like kind of the like, they were treating it as if he was the older one, because like in actuality in like our world, like the actor was actually older, and I feel like the same thing was kind of happening in this case, where like they're forgetting that he's actually the younger Doctor, and that like, sure, as he gets older he gets younger physically, and like, you know, his mind gets open to new things, but it I don't know, it just felt weird to me that they were acting as if the First Doctor was like somehow more and more like adult and all that kind of stuff, when really it should have been the opposite in a lot of ways. And we don't get the First Doctor really learning anything other than the Christmas armistice thing, and they're like, look at what we did that we didn't actually do, but this is what the Doctor is, even though literally I had nothing to do with that. So I don't know, it was weird, and I feel like they didn't play off of each other in the way that they should have. I feel like they used him as a way to throw in some sexist jokes before putting in a female Doctor, to be honest. It was a way to do it that made it like quote, acceptable, because they're like, yeah, he was in the 60s, and it's like, no.
Because also I've never watched a classic Who episode, and to watch New Who I don't think you necessarily have to, but like maybe one of our listeners who's watched a few episodes, cough cough Amani maybe, who has watched classic Who can tell me whether or not he was actually like any of these like sexist, racist like comments were ever made, because I don't know.
They were. Companions actually clean the TARDIS.
It was new. Classic Who.
So like he brought it up too many times for me to.
Classic Who was rough. Like, I didn't watch a lot of them, and mostly because it was rough. And like, those things did show up. I don't know about cleaning the TARDIS being like an ongoing thing, but like the way that he spoke about women, and like being like, his first companion was his granddaughter,
right?
And the episodes of the first Doctor that I have seen, he's very much of the, like, so you have to also realize that Gallifrey's still around. Like, he could go home whenever he wanted to.
Yeah.
But he was very much of the, like, you humans are silly and in the way.
Right.
And not, like...
just a science experiment,
like,
basically.
the whole, like, it is protected thing when he's like, what? Because, like, like, the stuff went down on Earth. Like, one would have been like, all right, well, it was fun. I gotta go. It's like if you were, like, vacationing and then, like, a revolution happened while you were, like, in the country, in this country vacationing. Your thought isn't like, let me go charge in and lead the revolution. You're like, this ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm gonna go. So,
understood.
That was very much, like, in line. Again, I didn't watch, like, a ton of Classic Who, so I can't say, like, historically over the whole span of his run, if that was, like, true or not. But that part was very much in line. The problem is that there were a few moments where it was, like, you know, like, your 5-year-old self, like, don't say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're talking to a 5-year-old who said something, and you're like, whoa. Like, this is why we don't talk about women this way. You know what I mean? But it was very much, like, Capaldi played it as if, like, your grandmother said some racist stuff that embarrassed you, but you weren't going to, like, clap back at your grandmother.
Exactly.
As opposed to if, like, your niece or your daughter said some out-of-pocket stuff and you're correcting the record so that they move through life.
Right, yes.
You know what I mean?
Like to be a better... to lead to the better person that we know that he becomes and who understands this kind of thing. Like, there should have been some, at least one moment of him being like, okay, so in the future, we don't do this. Or some sort of, like, as you were saying, like, chastisement, because it's not his grandfather where it's like a respectful distance. It's literally himself. And he's, like, yelled at himself in the past. Like, he literally spends the last part of the episode monologuing to himself, and we'll get there. But like,
that's when I screamed out loud. So just say that's when I broke the fourth wall. But no,
but yes,
like, it's not even a respecting too. It's like I've had those moments, and, like, older people in my family say some out of pocket stuff, and, like, my parents or, like, the older people, their reaction is, well, you know, that was their time, and basically it will take you too much effort and no return to try to correct this. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's frozen now.
Yeah,
like,
a moot point.
They're not going to change, and don't waste your effort or brain space trying to, like, force a change. Which you don't do with children, right? Because you're like, you're
and especially because we know that the Doctor is going to change. Like, it's not an old person who's, like, actually static and actually won't affect, like, literally 900 years plus into the future. It is a person, like, it's a person who is literally going to be... I know, whatever, I lost track. I wasn't sure how old he was as one, so I was like...
He keeps, like, Moffat just likes to add a couple hundred years every couple episodes.
Just drop another 100.
Just throw 50 more on there.
For sure, David Tennant was like
900 years. That's where I got it from.
Alive for like 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Because he was 900 when we started, and then when the time 11 ended, he was like 1,700, whatever the hell. I was like, y'all just add centuries.
Tennant only lived like 4 years. He, like, actually aged with, like, the rest of us. Like, he was like, his 4 years of thing, he was like, I'm 900. And then he's like, I'm 904. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
And then,
11, who knows?
But
yeah.
50 years every once in a while.
And, like, a couple of the lines were funny, but it was a lot of cringy, like, all right, this is, like, there was too much of it. It was just too much.
Right.
If it were wanted to...
one joke, and then like, we don't do that on this TARDIS. And then we
I would have enjoyed if the only, like, thing that we had was that clapback that Bill gave both one and the captain. Who was like, oh, I know about the fair sex. And they were like, excuse me.
Right, yes.
I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
But
I like
also
that.
Like a gimmick a little bit, because that's kind of all we've really seen of Bill. Like, we've seen her flirt with 2 girls. We've seen people flirt with her and her be, or seen dudes flirt with her and her be like, you know what? It's not how I get down. But a lot of times it's just like, well, I'm gay, so. And I feel like.
Yeah. Sure.
That's it? Really? Okay.
But, again, it's the...
Which is not, that's not really...
It's still... I'm treating Moffat Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm just saying pretty much all of Bill's thing was lacking, but we should wait a little bit until we get
because we have a
Bill
Bill
I'm
section,
saying, like,
guys.
I'm treating Moffat the same way that I talk about, like, treating old grandparents and stuff. Like, it's static. It's not. It is Moffat. So let's get our chuckles where we can.
Especially because it's hard. It's hard to, like, there's no person to communicate with him. Like, we always, like, on the other side of We Black and Nerds, there's Wizard Team, where it's like J.K. Rowling is a very similar person in the way that she kind of, like, thinks she's more progressive than Moffat, but, like, there are times when she thinks she's being progressive and she's actually not, and it's sort of like, this is just breadcrumbs, like, what are you doing? And then there are times when she like makes a huge mistake, and then it's hard to, like, dialogue with her about it. Like, there are times when she takes two steps forward, like a step forward, and, like, understanding, like, oh, okay, cool, let me, like, understand that concept, and then she takes, like, two steps back. But Moffat, there's just no dialogue, like, he's like no dialogue. Yes, because at least Jo, for as many times as she's taken a step back, there have been times when she's taken a step forward, or at least, like, look, I know we don't like her retroactive, like, PC, like, whatever, but, like, that's one more step than Moffat has taken. So it's like, it's not a good level, but it's still, like, in terms of those two specific people, I don't know, but there's still just, like, a similarity there where it's just like, come on, like, why are you so stuck in the past? And then you think you're being progressive, but, like, people who are in the marginalized communities that you do not discuss or, like, forgot to include are like, hey, you should change this, and there's just nothing in return, especially with Moffat, who just also, by the time we got to Bill, it's just like, that wasn't him. Like, there's no way that, like, that wasn't him. He wrote it, and, like, but, like, he didn't necessarily cast her. He maybe approved it, like, signed off on it, and was like, okay, cool. But it wasn't like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have a black lesbian. Like, I don't see that happening in his brain, especially because the way he handled it.
You're going to do?
Yes. And then it was like, okay, and now you gotta go. It just doesn't feel like that any of the progressiveness came from him. It usually comes from some outside force, and, like, he's in charge, so he gets credit for it. But it just never feels like from us, who are, like, the people he ignores. It just doesn't feel like he knows what he's doing. So thanks for all the things you brought us and all the cool things, but good riddance to everything else. So
literally,
basically what I tweeted yesterday. Let's move on.
So like, as we get closer to the regeneration, after, you know, the stuff that didn't connect and whatever, and we figured out Christmas again and all that kind of stuff, we get some nostalgic moments for 12, which was funny because at first I was, like, a little irritated, and then I was like, well, no, this is what they did for the other ones, and it makes sense. But I think by that point I was just, like, annoyed
with
generally.
The whole episode,
So, and I think part of it is because of the way it happened. So we find out Bill isn't really Bill, and she is part of the testimony or whatever. And she gives the doctor his memories of Clara back, which I think would have been sweet if it wasn't Bill doing it.
Yeah.
You know
the fact that she turned into a white woman really just gave me some side eye.
I give you this thing, and then she turns into Clara, and I was just like, this is a Martha Rose thing all over again, and I don't want this. Even though I don't hate Clara, and I, like, really liked I liked 12 and Clara together until Danny or whatever, until he came around. That was some bullshit. But, like, season 9, I think the two of them had character development that was interesting around each other, and so it, like, kind of made sense why they meant so much to each other. And so, but I also thought that the doctor, like wiping his memories of Clara, while it was a repeat of what happened with Donna, I also just appreciated that because they finally acknowledged that like, storyline existed and, like, happened. But I felt like, so I thought that part was really interesting and powerful, and I was like, cool, we'll leave Clara there, but now she's giving Clara back. But then, like, she's becoming Clara? I don't know. That part made
They literally could have had them side by side, even if they weren't acting together.
Here's Clara. You remember her? Here's all her memories. You could have just same with Nardole. She didn't turn into Nardole.
Right.
So I just, that part was kind of...
Like, it literally could have been some sort of vision or ghost or, like, apparition next to Bill, she really didn't have to turn into Clara. Like, just don't.
Phony bot thing.
Exactly.
I don't know what it is. Is it an alien? Is it a robot? I don't know.
No one knows.
Whatever it is. It's a what?
It's a some glass robot thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ghost, I don't know, but like it could have been both of them, and I think that would have been cool.
Of all of the like sexist sort of racial whatever like lines that are in that one's the one that like bothered me the most, because she literally just could have been like right next to her.
Right, because I was like, I like Clara, and I think it's a good idea for her to show up. I don't know why I didn't think about it beforehand, and I was like, I was like kind of surprised, but I was mad because I was like, why is she replacing Bill?
Well,
that's not
so what happened for me was
there can only be one.
Apparently. So what happened for me was, well, two things. One, I think it was interesting that they were able to get Clara, because poor 11 got the ghost of Amy running around the stairs, and it's like, it wasn't even the
Karen Gillan came back
for the finale. For his finale? No.
Yeah, she did, because she put her hand on his face and said, "Raggedy Man, good night," and then he regenerated. I remember that. But they did have like a fake Amy, but that's because the girl who played her as a kid was like way too grown at that point. Yeah. But no, Karen Gillan did come back for like 2 seconds.
I did not remember that.
And it was like his own little hallucination.
Right. And that could have been the thing with Clara. Anyway, but like Clara shows up, and I am not a Clara fan, so I'm like side eye, and then immediately had to take that back, because one, it does make sense, and I wasn't upset that she showed up. I was just like, ugh, Clara. Like, it made sense. Like you said, like, she belongs there. Like, she has to show up. That's not the problem. It's just like, ugh, Clara. But then freaking Nardole shows up, and I'm like, okay, I take it all back. I take all my side eye back.
I was like, this is rock bottom. And I was like, no, it's fine. I like got over it. I got over my issues with like the fact that Shiro was replacing Bill in that moment. Like,
exactly.
Cool. And then Nardole's egghead shows up, and I'm like, why? No. I think I like yelled at the television. I was like, oh fuck.
I'm just like, why?
There was an audible groan for me. I don't think I yelled then. My yell came much later. But when I was like 2 through, like I was like, I'm done. When Nardole showed up, I was like, okay, I'm done. And then when I was through, my yell came. But there was like an audible groan, and like of course. It was like, it wasn't even, again, it's like if you ask Moffat what his like top 5 highlight reels were, he's like, Nardole. Everybody loved Nardole.
No.
Everybody want to see Nardole.
No. Because like, okay, so if we're going back to the comparison of 11's end, where's Rory? We don't see no fake Rory. Like, I forgot that Karen Gillan showed up, so, like, that's on me. But, like, I know Rory didn't show up at all. And he was way more of a companion to 11 than Nardole was to 12. Rory was in all the seasons that he was in. I don't understand. We didn't even get a glimpse. We didn't even get a flannel, a glimpse of a flannel shirt. And yet Nardole shows up and it's like, yay, let's hug.
Not a Roman sword, nothing.
Not a single thing. Could have been a Centurion sword somewhere, shield. Why? We would have been fine. And I think that they only did it because they're like, look, we had Bill show up, so we gotta have Nardole show up, which is not true. But I think that's the only reason why he made it into the episode, so that the guy didn't feel, maybe so the actor didn't feel left out, or he's friends with I don't know. But like, we didn't need him. Especially because like, there was no purpose to it. He was just like, don't die, but like, we'd already covered that, so.
Yeah.
Why?
We don't need you.
Why?
It literally was like, I understood having Nardole for like an episode, right? Like, he's a bigger name comedian. Like, it's kind of like when James Corden in Doctor Who. It was like, he's this like, British. I think that dude's Australian too, so that doesn't really make sense. But like, anyway, but he's like, this like celebrity. It's the fan, Michaela Cole in Star Wars type of thing, right? Like, I want to do it. I can be in here, but come up once, come twice, and go away.
Yes.
And also, like, those are the episodes where, like, Amy got a break, you know what I mean? And the one she was like stuck in the TARDIS the whole time, and the other one she was, I don't know where she was.
I think she like quit for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was his farewell tour.
The doctor was dead.
Yeah, it was his farewell tour. So he went to like see all his like old friends and stuff. So like Amy was like,
she already thought he was dead.
Oh, right. There was like this like a bottle episode with this one guy, and like you get a little bit of like big name recognition. It's like when Mitchell and Webb were on the spaceships in a dinosaurs in the spaceship episode. Like I was like, because I am obsessed with British comedians and culture, and I watch all of those shows. I was like, fuck yeah, like oh my god, you know what I mean? But I don't need them in every goddamn episode, right? Like they're not. One, because they're always going to, like, the entire episode, Mitchell and Webb were Mitchell and Webb. Like, that happen to be robots or whatever. The entire time James Corden is in those, I can't even remember his name because he's James Corden with the Doctor. You know what I mean? Like, he's not, I don't know. And so the whole Nardole thing was just like,
I think with Nardole,
I would give you one episode, but you just kept shoving him at me and, like, stop trying to make this happen. It's not going to happen.
Especially because, from my understanding, the Nardole thing mimics the Donna thing. So Catherine Tate is a British comedian and like known for being funny. So they brought her into the show and she was like funny, but also serious. Like it was a way for her to like expand her, like what she's known for.
Well, that's when she came back. They brought her in for a Christmas episode and it was supposed to be a one-off.
But she was also like funny, but also serious. Like Nardole didn't have any of that. There was no depth to his character. So like at least when Catherine Tate showed up, at least if we're just talking about the one-off, she shows up, she's loud, she's funny, she's like ridiculous and like butting heads with the Doctor, which also it's just like, look, like an actual like pairing. Like Nardole didn't actually like bring much like interesting dynamic with the Doctor.
Never respected Nardole.
Right. Yeah, literally. And so, like, if we're comparing it to that, it's like, okay, cool, whatever, you bring this guy in, but, like, they didn't give him any depth, they didn't have a good dynamic, none of that happened, and then he's in the whole thing, and it's like, when they brought Catherine Tate back and had her in the whole thing, they gave her character development, they gave her depth, they gave her seriousness, where she could balance being funny and being loud and being Donna, like the Donna that we know, with, like, this serious character who, like, is dealing with all this stuff, and how, like, she actually had backstory and all this stuff, so, like, it made sense for the actor who we know for being something else being this character. But Nardole is just this, like, random funny, even though, like, not really. He's had, like, two good lines. He, like, had, like... the way you said that was so funny. He had like two good lines, and that was it out of the whole, like, 11 episodes he was in. Like, come on. Like, we didn't need it. And it's just like, I see what you tried to do and what you were trying to compare it to. Like, oh, this is just like when we cast Catherine Tate. It's not. It's not at all.
How dare they?
The Clara thing was like, yes, we had 2.5, 3 seasons of Clara.
Of course.
She could just say goodbye to her Doctor
as well.
I would have hoped. And
if it wasn't there, I would have also been mad.
Until talking to you guys, I assumed that Bill just made a little, like, mirage thing. My brain rejected that Bill turned into Clara.
No, she literally turned into Clara.
My brain didn't see that. It didn't happen. I don't understand. I won't respond to it. Okay?
Cool. That's fine. I wish that my brain worked like that.
My brain, there was a hologram Clara in the clouds. Talking to him.
The way they cut it, they wanted it to seem like that, but no.
They did some Lion King ass shit. Remember who you are.
The lights, and the lights literally look like that too. Yeah, that's what the lights look like. They look like the "Remember Who You Are" scene.
Right. That's what I saw. Anyway, so that's what happened, and that made sense. Like,
yes.
Clara deserves a chance to say goodbye.
Absolutely.
Sure. Nardole's ass walked up, and I was literally like, "So is this gonna end? How much longer do we have?" Right. Nardole doesn't get it. He doesn't deserve a chance to say goodbye, because what did he do when he was there?
But also, I feel like he had a chance to say goodbye.
He did!
He had a chance in the finale.
Look at me, go be the hero on this spaceship and continue with the resistance or whatever. They did that already.
They did that. He got a goodbye and Bill didn't, and then Bill got a goodbye and then Nardole showed up.
Yeah.
And they had to have a triple hug, a group hug.
So after all that, the Doctor goes back into his TARDIS and he does this really weird monologue. I thought that there was a monologue that he had at the beginning when I think he was talking to the first Doctor. Maybe he was talking to someone for one.
Yeah.
Towards the beginning, and I was like, okay, cool. They're giving Peter his,
his Emmy scene.
His thing.
They don't have Emmys, but there's Emmy
this last one, I thought some of it was kind of cute, mostly at the beginning, but then I was like, who is he talking to, and why?
I thought it was cute in the bad way.
I broke the fourth wall and just said, "Who the fuck are you talking to, man? Who? Are you talking to me? Am I supposed to be? Can you see me? Who are you talking to?"
Okay, so it just doesn't make any sense because he's not talking to anyone, but he's talking 13? To himself. I guess, he's talking, he's talking to himself. He was maybe giving 13. He was maybe giving 13 advice, even though it's not like you need to talk out loud. She ain't there yet. And it's also your same brain. Nothing changes. You could keep all of those thoughts in your head without speaking them out loud. And I know people talk to themselves, but I don't give myself monologues. And it no, if you do,
I don't give myself advice.
But it's if you do an affirmation thing, maybe in the mirror, maybe if they had a mirror, it would have made sense. Maybe that would have solved the entire scene. Because I'm just who are
you? He was also jumping around.
Yes.
He went upstairs. He did a twirl.
He was trying to do his best Matt Smith impression, because that's what it was. It was that Moffat gave Matt Smith this huge monologue at the end of his run, but Clara was there. And at the very least, he hallucinated Amy. So it was okay. Sure.
But also, he was talking to himself. It's not like he was just saying things the Doctor loves or does. He was literally always choose love.
Never eat peaches.
I get that. That's a fun callback to human human nature, blood, family of blood. But I just why was it happening? They really could have constructed that. He could have had that same monologue scene if they really needed him to have one. But actually, literally you had one. Doctor. You literally had the first Doctor in the episode. And you could tell him these things. He literally did, because he was so racist and sexist in the whole episode.
That's who he should have been talking to.
It's who he should have been talking to the whole time. They could have rearranged that where the first Doctor was still there. And they regenerated at the same time. It's oh, look how peaceful one was when he regenerated compared to how 12 goes in 13. How are we doing this better right now than their construction of it when they're professionals? I don't understand. The parallels could have happened at the same time. I can see it in my head right now.
And yeah, the only thing is that he would have done that, and then he would have regenerated, and then it would have been haha, I'm a woman. Now, you're gonna ask me to clean my own TARDIS? It would have turned into some bullshit.
No, I think that
that would have made more sense, but then also no.
I don't know. I think they could have still made it somewhat better.
I read somewhere that it was supposed to be as a advice to Chris Chibnall, who's gonna be the new
no, it literally.
Showrunner. But then I'm write that in a letter. Why do we need to see this?
Right.
I know about the Doctor.
When a president, in America, when we go from one president to the other, they write a letter of advice, put it in the desk drawer, and peace out. When we don't see it. Because I don't need to know.
Yes, during the scene, I was just this is not 12 talking. This is Moffat talking. And that was some part of the thing that frustrated me the most. It was he's not talking to anyone. It's just this random monologue. But also, this is not 12.
Yeah.
It is literally Moffat, which
it's not his characterization at all.
Right, the lines are usually blurred a lot. We all know that the Doctor says stuff and you're that's just Moffat talking. But this was literally all just Moffat talking, and it they really, it just wasn't it wasn't seamless. Said.
It's stuff it's all been it's rehashing old shit. It's just a lot of Moffat's later stuff where he just takes the ideas he had before and tries to revamp them in some way, or he just runs out of ideas and gets lazy and it's let's just throw it all into the plot. Yeah. So it's just
but I think too there was earlier, I think in season 10, maybe season 9, where Capaldi does have this monologue where he's talking, I think it's season 10, he's talking about being good. It was the episode with the dude on the lake, like, or the guy with the monster underneath the frozen ice thing,
Okay.
and he's talking to the bad guy, and he like does this like monologue, which was like, watch Peter Capaldi work, like watch like this actor act, you know what I mean? And like there are certain times in television shows,
all the time.
Shonda Rhimes loves to do this.
I'm literally thinking about it. I was literally thinking about Papa Pope's monologues and how, like, at first they're, like, really powerful and, like, really good. And then, like, 2 seasons later, you're like, oh, we're still doing this?
But,
that's what it felt like to me with 12.
That's how we talk to people. That's his everyday, like, cadence.
It's one of the reasons why I stopped watching a lot of Shondaland, actually, is because I was like, humans don't talk like this. And, like, okay, there's like this theater tradition where you get to have this like good, rousing monologue that people in everyday speech wouldn't do. But when you're writing a sustainable like TV show or whatever, like there needs to be a reality structure that you stick to. Like musicals, people don't bust out in song and dance, right? But in the musical genre, there are rules to how you transition into a song and dance and how you transition out of it. And when movies or when musicals break those rules, you're like, what the fuck? That's not how that works, right? like it's not the singing and dancing that gets you upset. It's the fact that they broke the rules of how that's supposed to work.
Like Capaldi can have a monologue all he wants, and like he's great at them and they're enjoyable, and like he was great at acting in it, but like at least give it context. Like it had no context.
Right. And that was like there were like all of these moments where I was like, okay, this isn't great. And like we've kind of said, like Christmas episodes generally aren't great. Like
I don't think
there's like a handful of them that I like, one of which I really like, which I know is very controversial, but fight me, I don't care.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. But like, so you go into it being like, okay, this is what it is, right? It's a Christmas episode. It's going to be wonky. It's going to have whatever. But I was like, this isn't even like this whole episode. It wasn't outlandish enough for like a regular Christmas episode, right? Like, because there was no plot. It wasn't.
Well,
like,
it was outlandish. That scene where they run down the ropes of the TARDIS that's like falling from the spaceship, like the music was like literally from our cartoon, and I'm just like, why is this whole scene happening? Like that was the first moment where I was like, no.
Song. Did anyone else peep that?
I don't know the songs like you do. My brain's not a trap like yours.
It was like at first I was like, this.
I didn't know there was a song.
No, because it
becomes
a big deal like right before the end of time, because that's like it's a song calling the Doctor to like die or whatever, or like to his end. But at first I was like, this sounds like very much like Russell T Davies. You know what I mean? I was just like, this sounds very much like music, early New Who. And then I was like, no, that's the Ood song.
I didn't realize it was the Ood song. I thought it was just like a Doctor theme, but it was when the Christmas armistice is happening, and like he's staring at Captain Gaddis, like cheers or whatever, and like I think that song starts playing there, and it felt very familiar, and I like the tune, so I was just like, oh, this is nice, but I didn't connect it.
Pulled me out.
I didn't connect it to the Ood, and I hadn't realized that we hadn't played it. Because it's just like a theme that I enjoy, and like it's one of those songs that I'm like, oh right, Doctor Who is good music.
But I was like, what's happening here? Because this doesn't have anything to do with Moffat. I was confused.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't put that all together, but I noticed it because I was like, oh, one of those tunes that I like that I actually recognize, but I didn't recognize like from where it's from or what its title was.
That makes sense. Okay, so then 12 finally regenerates.
It's a lady, y'all.
And we have
and then we have to like acknowledge that trash ass Daily Mail talking about how women can't drive.
Well, first let's talk about her. Before we get there, before we talk about trash, let's talk about her. So her first words are "Oh, brilliant," which is cool.
Classic.
There's
Doctor.
no like "I'm a girl." There's none of that. It's just like, oh, it's cool. Lit.
Yeah,
let's do this. And of course, the TARDIS is a wreck again. Which is
but because the regeneration is so
friends don't
happened after 10 regenerate
and drive.
Regenerated, it was kind of a mess. It didn't like explode because it wasn't like en route. Or I think it, I think it didn't like really fuck up because Clara was there and she at least got them to a safe place. You know what I mean? Versus like with 10, he regenerated and he was like en route in the air, and then that shit like plummeted back to Earth.
Yeah.
And so this was like a similar situation, except she fell out of the TARDIS.
Oh no, she fell out.
I was just kind of like, oh shit, but also she's gonna be fine, so whatever.
Yeah.
And I was also like, Matt, like 11 definitely could have happened to 11. He's almost fallen off the TARDIS a couple of times.
Oh,
he
yeah.
just had a nifty little like handlebar
Yes.
to save him.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. So
Okay.
I was just kind of like, yeah, this is what happens. I was.
It's
a
what
little annoyed at it
happens.
only because it's happened so many times now that
Yes.
I was like, let's do something different.
Yes.
But
Okay.
other than that,
So to put it all together in what we're the Daily Mail was just like, okay, women can't drive. Is that why the TARDIS exploded? No, it's literally what always happens. But my thing is that it's still Moffat writing it, and I think he threw her out of the TARDIS. The way that the TARDIS shakes, like, it's not just like the TARDIS is like wobbly and she falls out. It's literally held upside down and shaken like there are papers coming out, because it just, to me, it looked like she was being tossed out. And I think that my thing is that I think Moffat is just being Moffat, and like he had one line that maybe Chibnall wrote. I don't know. It's hard to, who knows who exactly contributed to which parts of the regeneration, but like, it just seems like Moffat is saying that the TARDIS either doesn't, it's hard to tell if it's like the TARDIS doesn't like it, the TARDIS is jealous, it's two women, like whatever is in his brain. It just looked like to me that like she's being thrown out of the TARDIS. But I do think that hopefully Chibnall will have a river catch and the TARDIS disappeared, and that's the cliffhanger. But then the TARDIS is obviously just going to show up and catch her again. Like, obviously, like, right?
Yeah, something's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Also,
I mean,
you're forgetting that Moffat and Gaddis know a lot about the fair sex. So, you know,
and they know that women don't like
know
each
their
other,
expertise.
and women don't like each other, and women are jealous of each other, and cattish.
Goodbye.
They know a lot about us, and so
Happy Kwanzaa.
They're just writing what they know.
See you later.
But see, that's why. But that is why I obviously think that the Daily Mail like just was grabbing for clicks and to be controversial and to be annoying. But also, we still have to remember who did write the scene, and how I just don't think that he had less sexist intentions than the Daily Mail.
I mean, I will say this is that
just different ones.
The TARDIS threw her out. I didn't see that, but I read it as like, y'all gonna stop.
No, of course. I hope that that's what happens when Chibnall takes over. Like, that's the explanation. But there's a difference between the explanation on screen and the explanation of the person who wrote it. So I think both of those things can be true, because the person who wrote it and then the execution of it at the end will be like, oh, she's just upset because literally every time they regenerate, they have to destroy her interior. Excuse you.
They don't.
Sexy's like, stop it.
Between 9 and 10. Also,
true.
Like, you can do that without her blowing up every time.
Every time.
Right. Like, you know what? Because I think
you can just change her interior.
11 did that in between 6
right.
and 7.
He just redecorate.
Yeah.
He was just like, I'm feeling a little different.
Yeah.
I don't want the warm colors. I'm feeling like winter. So let's do that.
Right.
It's just
absolutely.
It's very simple.
Yeah. So I think, they definitely could have come up with a better way to change the desktop, but I think that part of the reason why the regeneration is always so explosive is because it's changed. Like, I think we need a reason at this point for why the regenerations are sometimes so explosive and sometimes they're not, because like the deaths of each Doctor, if it were violent, sure, but they had, like, this one wasn't a violent death. And, like, it doesn't seem like it was, like, pulling from... Like, when 10 dies, he, like, literally sucked in gamma, like, rays, or, like, whatever the rays were that, like, he sucked up instead. Like... So I understand when that gets exploded, it's gonna destroy stuff. But, like, the other regenerations weren't as violent, so it didn't need that.
Yeah, I'm also really sick of, like, these... I mean... I still don't really understand 11's regeneration. I refuse to go back and watch it again to figure it out. So it is what it is in my mind.
I've watched it a second time and I still don't quite get it, but yeah.
But I'm also like over the idea that you are dying from like radiation poisoning or whatever, and you get to just walk around for another like 2 months until you regenerate.
Like, how do you have the power to suck it in?
I took.
Like, how do you just have the power to suck it in? Just like, I'm just not gonna do this right now. Because from one, like, apparently it also happened with the first Doctor, which just doesn't. I don't. Why?
No, he threw that in there.
I know.
You know, yeah,
like that was annoying. Like, where it's just like, oh, let me take this moment, but like that's not actually. Yeah, like that's not what happened.
Right. Because I can.
Because like, were his companions not in the TARDIS? He
literally rewrote the regeneration of the first Doctor. That's bold. Oh my god.
Were his companions not in the TARDIS?
Only
a white person could do that.
A white dude.
Yeah.
Could be like,
but like,
you know what I'm gonna do?
So when Ron regenerates, he just regenerates alone, and the camera just shows his face changing. Like I always assumed his companions were in the TARDIS and watched it happen.
Oh, I don't know, because I didn't see that.
I don't know.
Because it seems like Moffat was just like, and screw the companions, we're in there watching it happen. Like, it just seems weird for him to...
trying to give them new actors too, but they were there for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, but I guess most of the time they regenerate alone. That's my question, is that where did they go? He just leaves them and like shows up in the snow and then never goes back to them? I don't know if they transitioned from 1 to 2 or not.
One of them is his granddaughter, I thought.
No, I think maybe by the end it was. I don't know. I wasn't clear. I didn't know what was happening. Let me not.
I don't know.
Like, let's not even pretend like I could explain that, because I don't. Do we want to do Bill Fells? I feel like we did hit most of these points.
We did hit a lot of these points. She gets to ask questions, which is good. Go ahead. That's all I had.
One Bill Fells. I mean, like she's done now, but like I am so sick of her being used as a plot device. She is a human. Like, so my biggest thing was, okay, so then she's in the testimony now. Did Heather not happen? They came back? We don't know. So she doesn't get to say goodbye to her friends and family?
Nope.
She doesn't get to have any kind of reconciliation with her mother or about her mother. That's just something they threw in there for no reason. Like, she just disappears and no one gets any answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did Clara get any of those things?
Clara got treated kind of the same way. She just disappeared.
Well, no, I think, Clara kind of, by season 9, she kind of like, after Danny died, I think she started kind of like, I think she ended up in the TARDIS full time, or like, you know what I mean? Like, actually, she might have still been teaching, but I don't really think so. I think she kind of started retreating from people. So I think that at the very least, they would think that she was still traveling, because she just like disappeared, I think.
So like that's the one of Moffat's biggest companion problems, is that they're all these like, they just don't have families, so he doesn't have to deal with them. And RTD did a great job of like connecting the companions to like, you know, their humanity and like humans and other people who they care about, and so that they weren't just like people that the Doctor plucked out of the earth and like don't have families and don't have any connections. The point is that they have connections, and that's what helps the companion explain to the Doctor about humanity and like how you should love people. So like the thing, like I think overall I enjoy Moffat's run over RTD's, but like RTD was just so much better at companions and their families and like including that, so that when Moffat tried to like go old school with Bill and have her have a family, even like the minimum of one, like just one person, he still wasn't good at it, because he's so used to having companions that don't have anyone, because he just writes them that way. Because why have them have a family? Because then he doesn't have to deal with it, which is kind of like not the point.
He, like, changed her family situation
so many times.
So many times. She was a live-in nanny for like at first, and then all of a sudden
at some point she had parents, and then she didn't have parents.
Parents died.
The Leaf,
but then they were there, and then she had a grandmother. And
some
it was,
Leaf,
like, not clear who these people were at all.
He was just really terrible at that, and I think that was actually a really important aspect to the companions, because it connects the Doctor to humanity at an even higher rate, so that he wants to save them.
It gives more backstory for the
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes it so that they don't become a plot device.
Right.
Because there are people who care about them.
Mm-hmm.
And who they care about. And they feel a sense of, like, the same thing with, so that was the thing with, he kind of that with Rory's dad, the same thing with Clara. Like, all of a sudden Rory has a dad, even though we saw, like, Amy didn't have any parents, and then something happened, and then she had parents. They were all there at the wedding, and then they were gone again, or whatever. But when you go back to RTD, like, there are moments where, like, I'm thinking of that Martha, because I just recently rewatched that season, where, like, Martha thinks she's gonna die, and she calls her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's important.
Or, like,
it also doesn't allow, like, Martha and her relationship with the doctor, however messed up it was, like, it would not allow the doctor to lose Martha and not be held accountable to telling the people that loved her what happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and that was the same with Donna, and it was the same with Rose.
Yeah.
Although like, he has to face Donna's grandfather, like, and tell him, like, she can't know any of these things.
Or even a small part of that is that I keep thinking about right now is that, so when we first meet Donna at the wedding, she has both of her parents, but the actor who played her dad dies in real life. So, like, they deal with that in her, like, fictional family. Like, she still, you know, her dad died in the show, and, like, they don't, like, 100% address it, but it's still, like, you know that loss is there, and that's why this family is the way that they are, and why Wolf is there, and, like, why he's so close to her, and, like, why they're all, like, kind of worried and, like, looking out for her, because they know that loss happened somewhere in between, and it's not strictly addressed, but it's still there, because there's a world, like, there's an actual world built around this character that, like, is living and breathing outside of what we see on screen. But, like, any of Moffat's companions don't have a world that breathes off screen.
They're Janet from The Good Place. When you don't need them, they blink out of existence. They go to their void.
That's perfect.
They blink out of existence.
That is perfect. It's the perfect analogy.
And it just made me really mad. Like, it has not, I don't know why, like, it didn't with Clara. I think I was just too through with Clara by then, because who knew who Clara was by the end of Clara's run? It was just like,
it's true.
We'd had so many different retcons of her life. It made me a little bit mad, but to be honest, I still didn't watch Amy and Rory's last episode. I just couldn't, so I didn't.
It was fine.
But that was, like, also, like, made me a little upset. But I felt like in the after Amy and Rory left, there was a lot of, like, grief around that. And so it wasn't like they just blinked out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
But to love the doctor, and to trust him with the companions, you do need to have this thought that he's going to be held responsible for what happens. Not held responsible or whatever, but he's going to be accountable for what happens to them, right? Like, Clara chose her own, like, I'm not saying that it was the doctor's fault that Clara died. I am saying it's the doctor's fault that Bill died.
That was all her.
Or whatever. I'm not saying that, like, he is responsible for their actions or the decisions that they make that lead to their deaths or to them having to leave the whatever, but he is responsible if they die while traveling with him he does owe their people in their life an explanation. Mm-hmm. And I can't trust or love a doctor who just throws away his companions. Like, oh, they gone.
Yeah, I have too much to deal with. I'm dying myself, so never gonna go back to that time in London, to the school where he worked, to tell anybody anything. And it just seems like the way they also wrote it was like, he doesn't have to go tell anyone because her stepmother didn't care and Penny was just a date, and, like, they never gave her any connections to those people, so that
even the roommates weren't really her friends.
Yeah,
and they ended up not moving in together anyway. And, like,
exactly. So, like, he doesn't actually have to go to anybody because they still wrote it where, like, there was no one to go to.
And I'm mad about it. That's my bill, Phil.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so ranking this in, like, with the other Christmas specials.
All right, I'm gonna go first.
We already said that they weren't great. Like, none of them have ever been
right.
amazing.
So, like, this one, I'm going to go first because mine is probably the highest up because I don't like any of the other Christmas specials. This is third. So, my favorite is wait, I wrote it down. Husbands of River Song, because I really like what they did with that. And River Song is always great. And, like, River and Capaldi, and 12, like, play off of each other really well. And, like, it was, like, a sweet romantic, like, pairing. And then Runaway Bride, because even though when I first watched it, I was so upset about Donna and I hated her. And I was like, you're so annoying. Like, why are you so loud? Stop yelling. But now she's one of my favorite companions. And so that's, like, I always rewatch that episode. And I'll probably rewatch this one. But after this one, I don't think I've rewatched any. Like, none of them are episodes I really enjoy rewatching. Like, Christmas Invasion is next. And, like, I've rewatched that one, and it's fine, but it actually doesn't have that much 10 in it. And it's that high on the list, partially. I'm just now remembering the Lion King reference, so I might have to actually bump it up to 3. Because I do remember that there are good lines in it once 10 is allowed to be 10 and, like, wake up. But all the other ones, I was looking at lists, I was looking at trailers, and I'm just like, I don't care about any of these episodes. I really just don't care about any of them. The last one on my list is Dr. Mysterio because I still haven't watched it. But, like, I just don't like any of them. It's so weird. Like, I keep, like you were saying, Bayana, when we were talking about it before we started recording, like, we watch them because they're a new episode and because it's a Christmas tradition and it's, like, a thing to do. But, like, they're never really that good. But, like, I really hadn't realized how much I disliked most of the Christmas specials until I was, like, actually trying to rank them. And I'm like, after 5, I could just stop ranking them and they just all muddle together, except for maybe Next Doctor, which I just really dislike. And Dr. Mysterio, which I've heard is awful. And so it's one of the reasons why I still haven't watched it and why it's last, because it's unfair to rank it when I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so I put it in a different place, but, like, in terms of just the Christmas specials in general, they're not ones that I, like, care about that much. And it's really funny because I feel like every Christmas for the past maybe, like, 3 or 4 years, like, since I started watching Doctor Who, I've always been like, okay, it's Christmas, like, it means we gotta watch Doctor Who. And I'm, like, reminding my sister, and I'm like, we gotta watch Doctor Who today. But, like, they're not even ever, like, amazing. And I don't know. So I put mine. So I have this episode at number 9. And the way that I ranked it is episodes that I will or have rewatched more than once.
Yes, that's how I rank mine as well, yeah.
And so, like, so my first one is The Snowman, actually. Because I actually really like that episode. It's, like, the one right after Amy and Rory are gone. And when the Doctor meets Clara for a second time, and, like, meets her
Victorian
as, like,
London or whatever.
Yeah. And I liked that one because I felt like in terms of the story, it had a plot. You know what I mean? It had, like, it just had all the things that made sense. It had, like, a bad guy. It had somebody with, like, other motives. It just had all the makings of a story, and Christmas still was, like, a through line, you know? So that was my first one. And then the second was River Song, because I love River, and that episode was good. And then I did the Christmas Invasion. Yeah, and that one was cool. And then, like, the rest of them are just, they're all ranked about, like, what, like, after that it's just, like, which ones do I stop not, like, watching? And so basically it's the night between the end of time and before Time of the Doctor. Because, like, you know, those are regeneration episodes and I don't necessarily watch them very often. I don't really like watching the end of time.
Me neither.
To be honest. I felt like it was, I feel like and while it was way too much with the reality bomb situation, I feel
you hate the reality bomb.
Of 10. Like, that was the real finale of 10 to me, and I was, like, cool with that being it. Like, if he had regenerated after that, I think that would have been cool. But then they, like, don't regenerate him and then do a bunch of those weird specials and then give him End of Time. Yeah. And so
I always confuse the two.
I don't know.
Like, whatever plots are in one, I forget, and I'm like, okay, so which one happens and which one where he ends, because at one point he's the old man because he was captured by the master, and then
that's the end of season 3. That's a different one. So you're mixing them all up. Yeah.
They all
the one
blend
where he
together.
Becomes an old man in season 3, and then at the end of season 4, when
they
all
all
the
show up,
come together,
but I don't remember what happens in
Dr.
that.
Donna, and then the other doctor who ends up going off with Rose in the alternate dimension. And then there's like a bunch of specials.
That wasn't
and then there's the end of time.
And
like, and the end of time is fine. I think they have the master in there, and I didn't really care about Johnson's master like at all. And there's like a whole thing with Gallifrey, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. But really it was like the end of it when he regenerates, and it's really sad. And like, I feel that emotion very much. Like, I like love that part. He's like going back to visit everyone. Yeah. And for sure. Like, I don't want to go. And I'm just like, oh, my whole heart. Like, I just,
especially because everyone loves 10. Like, he's a great doctor. So it's good to see him get to do all of that.
Exactly. But like the episode as a whole,
like the actual plot is lacking. Yeah.
Is like, I could take it or leave it. And then it's Twice Upon a Time, and then the end of time, or then the Time of the Doctor, which I just realized that like all 3 of them are regeneration episodes, and I didn't think about that they're like kind of in the same place, like 9, 10, and 11. Yeah. Or no, sorry, 8, 9, and 10.
Just like in the middle.
Yeah. And then the Time of the Doctor, which I like. I'm like, okay, I don't hate it as much as Robin does, so I'm like, I could rewatch it. But
Same,
whatever. Yeah. I do think this one was better than that.
Yeah, I put Time of the Doctor as 5, but yeah.
I didn't care about, and I was really upset at Moffat about, actually, because I was mad at him about that one, because it was like he gave us the Husbands of River Song, and then gave us no Doctor Who for a year, and then gave us Dr. Mysterio, and I was like, trash, what the fuck is this? Yeah. I was like, no. And then Voyage of the Damned, which it was like the Titanic one. Yeah. And I don't like that one at all. And then the Next Doctor was stupid, so.
I hate the Next Doctor.
Super ridiculous. So yeah, so number 9 is mine for the most part. What about you, Robin?
So I am one of those weird people who I really liked Voyage of the Damned. It's probably second. So my number 1 is Runaway Bride.
Yes.
And then Voyage of the Damned.
They're all so mediocre that it's like, how do you rank them?
So I would say the Husbands of River Song is number 3. Yeah.
There are like 3 consistent ones where people are like, okay, I can watch these. Christmas Invasion, Runaway Bride, and Husbands of River Song are like the 3, and you put them somewhere in your top 5, and then the rest of them, it's like your personal choice and which ones you are willing to rewatch, and then the rest of them are just snooze fests, kinda. Yeah. Or don't make any sense.
So Husbands of River Song is 3, and then Christmas Invasion at 4. Okay. So this is where it gets iffy. Which is that I would say The End of Time would be number 5.
Sure.
But I don't care for it, but at least it had a coherent story. I just don't like Johnson's master. I find him annoying, and I think that they did too much. So I would say it would be The End of Time, and then Christmas Carol, just because I really love the look of that. It looked great.
And that's the one. Is that the one with Dumbledore? Yeah, I was gonna say that's the one with Dumbledore.
So then from there, I would do The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe again, just because it looked good.
Yeah, and it was cute.
It was cute. Then I would do The Snowman because I liked the Victorian era of it. I liked that Strax and Madame Vastra and Ginny were back.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Was that their first episode? I think that was their first one.
Madame Vastra and Ginny? I don't think so.
Yeah, the Snowmen. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They came along when Clara came. They weren't around with Amy and Rory, and that was the first episode after Amy and Rory.
Okay, then. Cool. Did it introduce them?
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of that. And then I would do, I guess, this one. Because there's nothing, like, offensively wrong with it. And the rest of them I have, like strong hatred for.
Sure. Like there's offensiveness in it, but it's, I guess, supposed to be there, and they don't really deal with it, but there's a purpose kind of to it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's
like
a different kind
really
of offensiveness.
To this episode though, but like yes.
Yeah. So it's like overall it's harmless. Like take it or leave it or whatever. It's harmless. Mm-hmm. And then I would do the next Doctor, which I watched but could never watch again and would be totally fine with it, and still don't love.
Right.
The Return of Dr. Mysterio, which I've never seen, and then the Time of the Doctor.
Dang! Wow, so, Time of the Doctor is that far down for your Doctor.
The one that you've never seen is
better than the Time of the Doctor.
Hilarious.
That is hilarious.
I almost got grounded as a grown woman. I almost got put on restriction because keep in mind these come on Christmas Day.
Oh no!
So I leave my family. I go up and seclude myself so I can go watch my last Doctor's last final moments. And then I start cussing like a sailor. My dad is like, "What's going on? It is Christmas. We can hear you downstairs."
The Time of the Doctor is your Order of the Phoenix movie.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And the other thing too is like it starts off so lit.
Your dad is one coming out of the TARDIS like language young lady.
He said, "Well, wait a minute.
Basically,
not on this day.
If I hear any more language like this,
trying to watch basketball. You're not like communing with the family at all. And then on top of that, we just hear just tirades of bad language coming from upstairs." They were like, "Why don't you just turn it off?" And I'm like, "'Cause I can't. It's not an option.
I am who I am."
Oh my gosh.
So yeah. So that's how I would rank them. It's middle.
Okay. Yeah.
Which, knowing that Christmas episodes are already not great.
Right. So like this is a ranking, but like number 1 is still really low.
Right.
No, for me, Husbands and Runaway Bride are like good episodes.
Like Runaway Bride, and I watch that often.
Our top 3 are like ones that we could rewatch if we like felt like it, and then after that it's like, well, dude.
Only if it's like, oh, you played the next one.
Right.
All right, I'll keep it on. And then like
Netflix is automatically, or wherever it's on now, it's automatically started playing it, and you're like, well,
whatever. And then like below 5, it's like you actively skip it.
Actively. I'm like, turn this off.
Yes.
No good can come of this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get my pressure up in this rewatch right now.
It's supposed to be fun, lighthearted.
Right.
Okay. Quotes from the TARDIS.
I like the line. I mean, it's a very Moffat line, but I did like the line about the TARDIS, like, getting bigger over the years, and how it's like, well, would you have a hard time sucking your tummy in after all this time? Just like the idea of the TARDIS being so sentient and like being a evolving being is cool. One being like, have I been burgled? Someone else put that, but I co-sign it.
I liked that one. Because he walked in and he's like, what the heck is this?
But also it's like
my TARDIS is just a room. You out here with...
But also like, how are you burgled and it replaced everything with something new? Get it together. Like, he needs to be quicker on the uptake. Over to you, Mary Berry, partially because of how 12's Capaldi's line reading of it. It's just like, well, over to you, Mary Berry. And just because, haha, old and stodgy.
Yeah, take off.
And then, to be fair, they cut out all the jokes of like I still don't understand exactly how and why the testimony had that like recap of the Doctor's existence.
It was because they really love doing that.
They really do, but also
like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Look at all their faces.
Look at the faces. They love that. It's like their favorite thing.
But
it works really well in the 11th hour.
Yes,
it does.
And then that's it. And that's it.
They do it in the next Doctor, which I think because it's
works
the first
because
time
of what? Yeah.
I was like, well, that's
and
cute.
Because of like
I don't know,
it
I
has.
haven't seen that. I mean, I've seen it, but
yeah, I've forgotten it. And also, like, isn't the point like the guy downloads all the Doctor's memories?
Yeah.
So like
So
there it makes sense.
I think I remember that one the most because it was the first time it happened, and so it was like during my
and it might have been like one of the first times they show a lot of the old Doctor's faces in New Who. So like for me, someone like me, where it's just like I'd never seen, like I hadn't even looked them up and seen how they looked. Like I hadn't at that point because I was like watching it for the first time, like binging like the first 4 seasons. So I was like, okay, cool. And then in general, the episode was trash, but I was like, oh, that's what they look like. Okay, I can barely tell because it's all black and white in tiny pictures, but whatever. But yes, the first 2 times they do it, or those 2 times they didn't do it, it works. But like this time, I was just like, but why? But also, it's upsetting because like one doesn't learn anything. He's just like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
It's not like he's like, oh, this is who I become. Like, there's no moment of like, this is who I become, or like him either being fine with it or upset about it. Like, he could totally be like, they didn't even show him being upset with it, of like him being a doctor of war. Like, he's just like, I'm not like that, or like I don't know. It just like was kind of like
real.
A very like subtle. It was like too subtle for like the atrocities that the Doctor, in terms of who one is. Like comparatively, he's been through so much and like so much craziness happens where it's just like he could have had some bigger emotion of like, wow, all of that is gonna happen to me. But like, there's no like real like reckoning in that moment. So what was the point of it happening? Like, why did it happen? But I did enjoy Capaldi's like, okay, but they cut out all the funny stuff. Because, like,
that was good.
Funny stuff happens in all that time. But, yeah, I just, there was no point to one being there. And it sucks because it was cool to have him there. Like, if they did that with other doctors, perhaps the ones who've, like, the actors who passed away, and, like, had them show up, that'd be really dope.
If they did something.
If they did something good with it. Or just have a plotless episode and have that be it from the start. Like, don't pretend there's a plot. Anyway, we did this.
Okay, I was going to say, we're close.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next
one
is...
You have all the quotes by Anna, so go ahead.
Yeah, Bill said, questions are kind of my thing. How are you with answers?
Bad.
I did enjoy that.
I like that one.
Bad with answers. It was a good line, but he's a bad with answers.
To me, it was a little bit of a like, oh, maybe they did understand why we liked Bill so much. Maybe they listened to TARBIS, and then the rest of the episode happened, and I was like, never mind.
They didn't.
They
didn't. What is anyone supposed to be but a bunch of memories? Which I liked, and I thought that, again, it's just them introducing things that could have been more important to the plot, but just like that question, and a lot of different television shows and stories have done this before, about like what does it mean to be yourself or to be a human and all that kind of stuff. She asks all these questions and they don't get answered. Like the Doctor doesn't answer them with his beliefs. Like it doesn't get resolved in any kind of way. So that was kind of annoying. But I liked that.
Because also it's still confusing. Like, are there 2 Bills just running around with the same memories out there? We just don't have answers to that.
Yeah. I suppose one more lifetime won't kill anyone.
Yeah, one more lady lifetime.
True. Also I mean, like,
false.
Yeah, that's not true, but I mean, it's cute.
It's cute that he believes it.
Yeah.
At that moment.
Never be cruel or cowardly, and never eat pears, which I think is just cute because it's a thing that I did like about 12, is that he would always like have really good advice and then put a really random thing in there.
And I also like the callback to a previous Moffat episode from not even Moffat's era. Like, it's the one time he acknowledges that he didn't start Doctor Who. It's like, oh wait, this exists. I wrote on the show before I was in charge of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, oh, brilliant, which is the first word. Those are the first words of the 13th Doctor. So.
And then my favorite quote, who the fuck are you talking to? Which was me to the television during that monologue.
I don't know. Like,
the only quote where
it would have been resolved if he had just had a mirror, at least had a mirror.
Somebody.
He couldn't have been hopping around like that if he had a mirror.
It was like, has stored all of the images of all of his companions. So he could have chosen one.
Right.
You know?
What is the thing called when it's like the hologram of him? Because like,
or a ganger.
When I was rewatching the Let's Kill Hitler, and 11 thinks he's dying, and he gets the TARDIS interface thing that looks like little Amy. Yeah.
do the image of Donna. I don't know. Somebody.
Somebody.
Donna would have been really good, actually, because then they could have brought it full circle about his face.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been perfect, actually. But,
Oi,
you know.
Spaceman, which would have been great, too.
Because like, he
that never happened,
from
guys.
that episode, and then did it, like, for Clara, but it was also, like, in memory of Donna, and, you know, put Donna up in there. I could have rewritten this, and it would have been, like, 10 times better, but whatever.
Guys, nothing from RTD happened, according to Moffat. None of, like, 5 things happened.
Like, the whole
Moffat came up with
like,
Doctor Who.
Sorry, in that.
Moffat created, originated, like, it came from him.
It actually kind of still bothers me that, like, there's church and state between Moffat and RTD's eras, and, like, Moffat chose, like, 3 things that, like, he acknowledged happened, or, like, brought into, it's not even that it didn't happen, it's just, like, he doesn't acknowledge that it happened, like, none of it is really referred to much, and it's just, like, that's not how the Doctor should work.
So much. It's honestly why I like season 9 so much, because he finally acknowledges that season 4, which is, like, arguably the best season, he acknowledges that shit happened.
Yeah.
That it exists. And I was like, this is amazing! And, like, maybe if I rewatched it, I wouldn't feel that way anymore, but, like, I love that season because he actually acknowledges the history and doesn't have to go, like, you don't have to, there are, it's been, like, 12 years of Doctor Who? You don't really have to go back 60 years.
Right.
For content.
But also
and,
there
like,
are more references to classic Who than to RTD Who, I think.
That's what
Probably.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
You don't have to go back that far.
Yeah.
It's just go to, like, get some.
I really hope that Chibnall is allowed to touch on both aspects of the last 12 years of Who.
It's like, he sets the tone. I doubt. Like, if you're coming from, like, a corporate BBC perspective, they would love that, because then it gets people to go back and watch those episodes. Like, they love callbacks.
The ones that they, like, actually have available, right? Like,
right.
A lot of those old episodes don't exist anymore.
We literally can, I don't think we can watch one regenerate into 2. I don't think we can watch that anywhere.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they have that in the vault somewhere, but I don't think it's accessible.
And, like, you
don't
need
even
to
have a lot of them in the vault.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Way back when they're like, just use this tape. Nobody needs this. History, who cares?
Just this one tape. The only one.
Just record over it. It's fine. Yeah.
So, looking forward, we did an episode on 13 and what we knew so far, so you can go back and listen to that. And I think it's gonna air in autumn, is all I've heard. So, we'll obviously try to be back before then, with more episodes.
We'll definitely be back before then, but we don't have any kind of schedule until 13 shows back up again.
Yeah,
so
until season 11.
There'll be TARBIS drops.
Be on the lookout for dead drops of TARBIS.
Okay, you don't have to, like, you don't have to get it handed to you in a paper bag on a bench.
Me in Central Park at 2:03. And we're going to do a brush path, which is where we walk past each other and we knock hands and then we switch bags.
Okay.
I've been watching a lot of In My Five, guys. I got so many dead drops in me.
Okay, so, or else you can find it on iTunes and all the other places you can find a podcast.
Yeah.
It's hella boring, but okay, sure.
Yeah, check out blackgirlscreate.org.
You can read Connie's writing at Black Girl Nerds or all over the internet. And you can follow us on social media at We Black and Nerds. Use the hashtag TARBIS, Time and Relative Blackness in Space, TARBIS. And join our Slack, where we have a channel dedicated to conversations about Doctor Who. So if you want to talk in more depth without, well, we used to say the pesky 140 character limit, but now it's like 280 characters, and we don't need all that.
And a whole threading option. Like, I mean, if you want to use that, you can tweet at us, Yana_Hollows or Robin_Ravenclaw, or I'm Constar24. You can send us your personal feels. You can send the group feels to We Black and Nerds. Then we just have all the ways to send your Doctor Who feelings and thoughts about this episode and how they treated Bill, and about blackness in space and, like, in the TARDIS. And there's going to be a new black companion, so we can, like, still do this and hopefully not be raging mad by the end of the season.
I hope so. I was like talking to my sister who has not watched the finale of season 10. And part of it I think was like me and Robin's fault because we were like so upset that I think we kind of bled into her that she's like, I don't really want to watch it. So I'm trying to get her to at least just watch it once and like catch up. But she was saying earlier, like, she just feels really meh about continuing to watch Doctor Who, and that when she wants to watch it, she just goes back to old episodes that she likes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I feel that the same way too, you know, and I feel like
that's how I felt before.
But at the same
Bill.
time, because we're getting like a new companion and a new like we're getting a reboot, basically. And so I'm like, at the very least, I'm like, I'm gonna try it out and we'll see what happens, and we'll probably at least go through the 11th season. Like, I don't think we'll stop unless something like wild happens, but you know, I doubt we'll stop in the middle of season 11 and be like, fuck TARBIS, fuck everything.
I mean, if they kill off this black companion at any point,
I mean, who knows, we'll see, but
that'll
like,
be the minimum.
All like generally we'll probably at least get through season 11 and we'll see after that. Like, I think that's kind of where we are, which is the same with this one. Like, we were just like, we'll get through season 10
and we'll see what happens.
So yeah, I mean, you know, we'll do episodes about things that we love about Doctor Who, and it won't always be annoyance, but that's up to them.
I'm really looking forward to, or I'm really hopeful and optimistic about loving Doctor Who again as a whole. And this isn't even to go with like the black companions and stuff like that, like, which always to me like heightens it. Like, I can enjoy like super white Doctor Who. I can love you know, like, but I just really look forward to
fresh perspective,
optimism of each episode that I used to have that I lost at the end of like season 9 and 10.
Yes.
Where like, even after, like, again, we've talked about season 2. Like, season 2 happened. That was a thing. That was a choice they made. And I kept feeling like every episode, like, hey.
Yeah.
It could be great.
Yeah.
But yes.
But seriously though, like, just think to yourself the fact that like season 2 happened and we kept sticking back, like going back to it. Because there is optimism there. Because there are like great bright spots in this show, and I'm just hoping that we get back to the point where
season 2 and season 6 for me, because 5 was good to me. So like as a whole, it was just like, all right, I'm ready for season 6. And then there was like a New York premiere and I went to it and I was just like, okay, sure. And I think it was 6.5. So like the middle of that. But like 6 happened and I'm just like, every episode, I'm just like, all right, next one. And then I was constantly disappointed. And then after that, it was sort of like, well,
yeah,
okay.
That was me for 8, but that's because I started so late that like 8 was my first real like
live. Yeah, season 6 was my first live one.
Season 8 episode 1, because we watched it. Was like we had a sleepover. It was like a whole thing. Me and Robin and Sarah had a whole thing. And episode 1 was lit. Like, it is a good episode. Like, objectively a good episode. And I was like, all right, I am ready. And then it just like kept getting like worse and worse. I was like, what's happening?
I know.
I mean,
by season 6, so hard.
It's okay. Well,
it's okay.
Yeah.
But that optimism that we have, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, we'll be back. At the very least, we know that. And yeah.
See you next time.
Since we have all this time, if you are a fellow Doctor Who fan and have Doctor Who stuff on other places on the internet, or want to talk to us about Doctor Who and like want to be on an episode, hit us up and we'll see what happens. Because I think it'd be cool to talk to other people about their stuff.
If you have any ideas of like special episodes, like do you want us to talk about our favorite River Song episodes, or you know, like anything like that, let us know.
Yeah, ooh, a River Watch would be fun.
The River Watch would be really fun, and I just like the sound of that.
We could do like a mini season of just like a River Watch. Ooh, think about that one.
Plotting. TARBIS plotting.
Okay.
All right.
Classic TARBIS 30-minute ending.
girls have the box.